Qingfeng is a story from Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, an intricately woven and emotionally resonant short novel. Through the whimsical portrayal of a fox spirit, the author conveys profound themes of genuine love and friendship in the human world. It is said that the Zhang family in Taiyuan, Shaanxi, was once a noble and prominent household with a grand and imposing estate. However, as their fortunes declined, the vast expanse of buildings and houses fell into disrepair. Strange occurrences began to take place. Doors would open and close on their own, and family members would be awakened by inexplicable cries in the middle of the night. Worried about these phenomena, the head of the Zhang family moved to a villa, leaving an old man to guard the premises. The estate became even more desolate, and occasionally, laughter, singing, and musical instruments could be heard emanating from within. Zhang's nephew was named Qingfeng, known for his unrestrained and wild personality. He instructed the old man to inform him immediately if he heard or saw anything unusual. One night, the old man saw flickering lights on the upper floor and informed Qingfeng. Curious about the source of the disturbance, Qingfeng decided to investigate. Ignoring the old man's advice, he entered the estate and made his way to the upper floor using a concealed path. As he ascended the building, he noticed nothing out of the ordinary. Walking through the building and beyond, he heard faint voices. Peeking stealthily, he saw two enormous candles burning brightly, illuminating the surroundings as if it were daytime. An elderly man wearing a scholar's cap sat facing south, with an old woman seated across from him. Both were around the age of 40. Seated to the east was a young man in his 20s, and to the right sat a young woman who appeared to be around 15 or 16. The table was filled with food and wine, and the four were engaged in lively conversation. Qingfeng suddenly entered the room and exclaimed with a laugh, "An unexpected guest has arrived." The occupants grew alarmed and tried to escape. Only the old man came forward, scolding him, "Who dares to intrude into someone else's private quarters?" Qingfeng retorted, "This is my family's private quarters, yet you have taken over. You drink the fine wine alone and didn't even invite the master. Isn't that rather stingy?" After observing him carefully, the old man said, "You are not the master of this place." Qingfeng replied, "I am Qingfeng, the nephew of the master." The old man paid his respects, saying, "I have long heard of your name." "I have long heard of your name." He invited Qingfeng to sit down, called for the servants to replace the food and wine. But Qingfeng declined and insisted on pouring wine himself. As Qingfeng said, "We have been friends for a long time, and those who were present during the feast need not avoid us. Please invite them to join us for a drink." The old man shouted, "My filial son." Soon after, the young man entered from outside. The old man introduced him as his son. The young man saluted and took a seat. Qingfeng inquired about their family surname, and the old man said, "My name is Yijin, surname Hu." Qingfeng was always jovial, and he engaged in cheerful conversation. The young man, too, exuded an unconventional air. The two conversed heartily, and their camaraderie was evident, bringing them much joy. Qingfeng was 21, 2 years older than the young man, whom he called little brother. Hu Yijin mentioned, "I've heard that your grandfather compiled a work called Tushan Wai Jun. Are you familiar with it?" Qingfeng replied, "I am." Hu Yijin continued, "I am a descendant of the Tushan clan. I still remember the genealogy of the generations after the Tao Tang clan. But the lineage before the ancient Emperor Tang Yao has been lost. I hope the young sir can enlighten me." Qingfeng elaborated on the story of the Tushan woman, marrying Dao and aiding him in flood control, his eloquent words flowing like a spring. Hu Yijin was delighted and said to his son, "Today, we've had the privilege of hearing stories we've never heard before. The young sir is not an outsider. Please invite your mother and Qingfeng to join us so they may also learn of our ancestors' achievements." Hu Yijin's son then entered the curtain. After a while, the old woman came out with the young lady. Qingfeng examined her closely and saw the young lady's delicate figure radiating an enchanting charm. Her beautiful eyes revealed an intelligent gleam, and there was no woman in the human world more beautiful than her. Hu Yijin pointed to the old woman and said, "This is my wife," and then to the young lady, "This is Qingfeng, my niece. She is very intelligent, remembering everything she sees and hears." I invited her to listen to these stories. After Zhang Qubing finished speaking and had another drink, he fixed his gaze on Qingfeng, unable to take his eyes off her. Qingfeng noticed and lowered her head. Zhang Qubing secretly stepped on Qingfeng's foot, and she quickly pulled her foot back without showing any signs of anger. Overwhelmed by emotions, Zhang Qubing pounded the table and exclaimed loudly, "If I could have a wife as wonderful as Qingfeng, I would give up being a king in the south." Seeing that Zhang Qubing was getting drunk and becoming increasingly wild, the old woman and Qingfeng hurriedly got up, lifted the curtain, and left. Zhang Qubing felt disappointed and bid farewell to Hu Yijin before leaving the room. However, he couldn't get Qingfeng out of his mind and was unable to forget her even for a moment. That night, he climbed back to the upper floor and the fragrance of orchids and musk lingered on. He waited intently throughout the night, but there was only silence. He returned home and discussed with his wife, hoping to move their living quarters upstairs, in the anticipation of encountering Qingfeng once again. However, his wife disagreed. Zhang Qubing went on his own and settled down in the lower floor to study. Late at night, as Zhang Qubing leaned on the table, he suddenly saw a ghost-like figure entering through the door. With disheveled hair, the figure had a pitch-black face and stared at Zhang Qubing with wide eyes. Zhang Qubing smiled, dipped his fingers in ink, and blackened his own face. He locked eyes with the ghost, and the ghost was so embarrassed that it left. The next night, deep into the night, Zhang Qubing extinguished the candle and was about to sleep when he heard a loud thud behind the door. Hurriedly getting up to investigate, he found that the door was partially ajar. After a while, he heard the sound of light footsteps, and someone holding a lit candle emerged from the house. To his surprise, it was Qingfeng. Qingfeng was startled when she saw Zhang Qubing, and she quickly stepped back and shut the door. Zhang Qubing knelt on the ground, addressing Qingfeng inside the door. "I risked danger to come here, solely for the sake of seeing you. Fortunately, there is no one else here. Could you allow me to hold your hand for a moment? Even if I were to die, I wouldn't regret it." Qingfeng, separated by the door, said, "Your feelings for me run deep. How could I not know? However, my uncle is strict in his supervision, and I dare not comply with your request." Zhang Qubing earnestly pleaded, "I no longer dare to hope for the extravagance of holding your hand now. I just wish to see you in person, and that would be enough to satisfy me." Qingfeng seemed to agree and opened the door, grasping Zhang Qubing's arm and helping him up. Zhang Qubing was overjoyed, and the two of them walked downstairs hand in hand. Zhang Qubing lifted Qingfeng and placed her on his lap. Qingfeng said, "Luckily, fate brought us together. After tonight, even if we pine for each other, it will be in vain." Zhang Qubing asked, "Why is that?" Qingfeng replied, "Uncle was afraid of your audacity, so he turned into a fierce ghost to frighten you. Yet, you remained unmoved. Now he has found a new place to live, and the whole family has moved there. I stayed behind to keep watch, but I'll be leaving tomorrow." She added, "I'm afraid my uncle might return." Zhang Qubing insisted on stopping her from leaving, wanting to be intimate with her. However, at that moment, Hu Yijin quietly entered the room. Qingfeng was embarrassed and fearful, unable to raise her head. And she stood near the bed with her head down, and her hands fiddling with her clothes. Hu Yijin angrily scolded, "You wretched girl, you've tarnished my family's honor. If you don't leave quickly, I'll whip you." Qingfeng, feeling ashamed, hurriedly left, and Hu Yijin followed her out. Zhang Qubing followed behind and heard Hu Yijin's angry tirade, as well as Qingfeng's sobbing. Zhang Qubing's heart ached, and he shouted, "The blame is on me. What does it have to do with Qingfeng? If sparing her requires me to endure your blows, I'm willing to bear the consequences." After a long time, there was silence. Zhang Qubing returned to his room to sleep. From that point on, the strange sounds and occurrences ceased in the estate. When Zhang Qubing's uncle heard about this, he considered Zhang Qubing extraordinary, and was willing to sell him the house without worrying about the price. Zhang Qubing gladly accepted and moved his family there. After living there for over a year, he found the place comfortable but never forgot Qingfeng. Coincidentally, when he returned from visiting the graves on Qingming Festival, Zhang Qubing saw two little foxes being chased by a big dog. One of them escaped into the tall grass while the other, frightened, ran along the path, and upon seeing Zhang Qubing, it cried mournfully. It approached him, bowing its head and lowering its ears, as if seeking his help. Feeling sorry for it, Zhang Qubing opened his clothes, picked it up, and brought it home. After closing the door, he placed it on the bed, only to find that it was Qingfeng. Delighted, he quickly comforted her. Qingfeng explained, "Just now, while playing outside, I encountered this calamity. If not for your rescue, I would have undoubtedly been devoured by the dog. I hope you won't despise me because I'm not human." Zhang Qubing replied, "I think of you every day, and my thoughts are full of dreams about you. Seeing you now is like finding a treasure. How could I despise you?" Qingfeng said, "This is also fate. If I hadn't faced this calamity, how could I be with you? It's truly fortunate. The maidservants must have thought I was already dead, so now we can be together for life." Zhang Qubing was overjoyed and prepared another room for Qingfeng to stay in. 2 more years passed, and one night, Zhang Qubing was reading when Zhao came in suddenly. Surprised, Zhang Qubing put down his book and asked why he had come. Zhao knelt down and sorrowfully said, "Father is about to face a great calamity, and only you can save him. He intended to come to you personally, but fearing you would not see him, he sent me instead." Zhang Qubing inquired, "What's the matter?" Zhao said, "Do you know Mo Sanling?" Zhang Qubing said, "He is the son of my classmate and friend." Zhao said, "Tomorrow he will pass by your door. If he has a fox, he's caught with him. I hope you'll ask for it and keep it." Zhang Qubing responded, "The humiliation I suffered downstairs that year still lingers in my heart. I don't want to get involved in his affairs. If he wants my help, Qingfeng should come to ask for it." Zhao began to cry and said, "Fengmai has been dead in the wilderness for 3 years." Zhang Qubing, enraged, brushed his clothes with his sleeve and said, "In that case, my resentment runs even deeper." He picked up his book and read aloud, ignoring Zhao. Zhao got up from the floor, sobbing, and covered his face with his sleeves as he left. Zhang Qubing went to Qingfeng and told her what had happened. Qingfeng was shocked and asked, "Will you save him or not?" Zhang Qubing replied, "I will definitely save him. The reason I didn't agree earlier was to retaliate for his past arrogance." Qingfeng, now relieved, said happily, "I lost my parents when I was young and grew up under my uncle's care. Although I was punished by him in the past, it was in line with family rules." Zhang Qubing said, "Indeed, but it's still hard not to feel resentment. If you hadn't survived that incident, I would never have saved him." Qingfeng chuckled and said, "Your heart can be so ruthless." The next day, Mo Sanling indeed arrived. He rode a horse adorned with gold and wore a quiver embroidered with fierce tigers. His numerous attendants added to his grand presence. Zhang Qubing went out to greet him and saw that he had caught numerous birds and animals. Among them was a black fox, its fur stained red by its bleeding wounds. Zhang Qubing touched it and found it to be warm. He pretended that his leather jacket was torn and asked for the fox's fur to mend it. Mo Sanling generously gave it to him. Zhang Qubing handed the fox to Qingfeng and then entertained his guest. After Mo Sanling left, Qingfeng held the fox in her arms. It took 3 days for the fox to regain consciousness, and when it did, it transformed back into Hu Yijin. Hu Yijin looked at Qingfeng and wondered if he was still in the mortal realm. Qingfeng explained the sequence of events to him. Hu Yijin then bowed to Zhang Qubing, expressing regret for his previous actions and thanking him for the help. He looked at Qingfeng with joy and said, "I knew you didn't die. Today, it has been proven." Qingfeng said to Zhang Qubing, "If you have any love for me, please lend us the house so I can take care of the old man properly." Zhang Qubing agreed to her request. With a remorseful expression, Hu Yijin thanked them and bid farewell. That night, the entire Hu family moved in as promised. From then on, the two families became close, like a father and son, without any suspicions. Zhang Qubing lived in the study, and Zhao often came to discuss matters with him. Zhang Qubing's legal wife's son grew older, and Zhao became his tutor. Zhao skillfully guided him, displaying the qualities of a dedicated teacher. Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.